The grand hall of the Galactic court was silent, yet the silence was heavy like a storm waiting to strike. Thousands of alien nobles, warriors, and scholars filled the towering chamber, their strange eyes fixed on the young figure at the center. She stood tall, her silver crown still upon her head, her scales glimmering under the pale blue light. She was Princess Elira, heir to the throne of the Starborn Dominion. But tonight she was not a princess, she was a criminal. The High Elder's voice echoed like thunder. Princess Elira, daughter of Queen Serath, you stand accused of defying the ancient order. You disobeyed the council, you insulted your own bloodline, and you risked the honor of your people. Elira lifted her chin, her golden eyes sharp like blades. She did not tremble. She did not bow. Her pride was her armor, and she wore it well. I only spoke the truth, she said coldly. If that is a crime, then your laws are weaker than the humans you despise. Gasps rippled through the chamber. The word humans carried disgust among her people. To compare them to weakness was already offensive, but to compare the sacred council to humans was beyond forgiveness. The High Elder slammed his staff. Enough! The sentence was already decided, everyone knew it. Everyone whispered about it in the shadows. They expected exile or perhaps imprisonment, but what came next shocked even the most heartless nobles. For your arrogance, the Elder declared, you shall be punished. You will not be cast into prison, nor sent to the mines, no. Your punishment will be greater. You will marry a human. The chamber roared with laughter and disgust. Some clapped their claws together, some hissed with joy. For them, this was humiliation worse than death, to bind their proud princess to a creature from Earth. Fragile, soft-skinned, short-lived, was unthinkable. Elira froze for the first time. Her armor of pride cracked. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came. Her heart pounded. She had faced warlords, assassins, and traitors, but never had she felt this kind of fear. A human, she thought bitterly. One of them, her mother, Queen Serath, sat silent upon the high throne. Her face was carved from stone. She gave no sign of protest, no sign of mercy. Perhaps this too was her will. Perhaps the queen wanted her daughter broken. Take her away, the Elder commanded. Guards with heavy armor marched forward. Their boots echoed on the polished floor. They seized the princess by her arms for a moment. She considered fighting, breaking free, but what would that prove? It would only make her look more like a savage. As they dragged her through the hall, she heard the whispers of her people. She will kneel to a human. She will break. Finally, she deserves this. But she also heard another whisper, one from deep inside her own chest, a whisper of doubt. What if this punishment destroyed her more than chains or blades ever could? Outside the court, the cold air of the spaceport struck her face. A ship awaited her, plain and simple. Not royal, not noble, just a transport vessel. Inside, she would be taken to the distant human colony where her so-called husband waited. The thought burned like acid. She clenched her fists. Her pride screamed inside her. I am Princess Elira, I bow to no one, and yet her fate had already been sealed hours later. As the stars streaked past the windows of the ship, she sat alone in silence. The chains on her wrists were not metal, but tradition, the Dominion, had spoken, and no one defied it. She remembered the human face shown to her in the court's files. His name was Elias Ward, a simple human farmer. Not a warrior, not a noble. A man of the soil, his hands rough with labor, his eyes plain to Elira. This was worse than an insult, it was mockery. They had not even chosen a leader or soldier. They had given her to the lowest of Earth's kind. She swore to herself, I will never bend to him. Never. But even as she whispered this vow, her chest felt heavy. The stars outside blurred like tears she refused to shed. She would meet this human soon. She would look into his eyes, and in that moment, the real punishment would begin. The transport ship landed with a dull thud on the dusty surface of the human colony. The ramp opened, letting out the heavy air of a world far from the shining palaces of the Dominion. Elira stepped out, her back straight, her chin high. She would not let these creatures see weakness. Before her stood a group of humans. Their clothes were simple, their faces tired from work. None bowed, none cheered. They only watched with curiosity. Elira scanned them with cold eyes. To her, they all looked the same. Fragile bodies, soft skin, so plain compared to the proud-scaled beauty of her own people. Then her gaze stopped. A man stepped forward. His dark hair was messy from the wind, his hands rough with dirt, his eyes calm. Not sharp like a warrior's, not cruel like a noble's, but steady. His name was Elias Ward. Her husband by punishment. Elira's stomach twisted. She had imagined meeting a brute, someone who would try to control her, someone she could hate easily. But this man only nodded slightly. His voice was soft. "Welcome," he said. His accent strange, but his words clear. She did not reply. She turned her head away as if he was nothing, yet his eyes followed her quietly. Not with hunger, not with mockery, just patience. The guards left her in his care. Their duty done, the ship roared back into the sky, leaving her alone on this human world, alone with him. Elias gestured toward the small house behind him. "It's not much," he admitted, "but it's safe. You can rest." The word cut like a blade. She was a princess, born to silk chambers and golden halls. And now she was being led into a wooden house built by human hands. She wanted to spit, to shout, to remind him who she was. But something in his tone stopped her. It was not command, it was not demand, it was simple kindness. Inside, the house smelled of earth and smoke. The floor was rough wood. The walls plain. Elira stood still. Her arms crossed. Elias moved around slowly. Careful not to get too close, he placed a chair by the fire. "You can sit if you want," he said. "I will stand," she answered sharply. He only nodded, not offended, not angry. He picked up a pot and poured water into a cup. He handed it to her. "You must be thirsty." She stared at it. Suspicious, was this a trick? But his steady gaze held no trap. Finally, with cold pride, she accepted the cup. She raised it to her lips, and the cool water touched her tongue. She did not thank him. She would never thank a human. The silence between them stretched. The fire crackled outside. The wind howled across the barren fields. For the first time, she realized how far she was from her people, from her palace, from everything she had known. "Why don't you speak?" she demanded suddenly. "Are you afraid of me?" Elias looked up from the fire. His calm eyes met hers. "No," he said simply. The word hit her harder than any insult. No fear, no trembling, just truth. She frowned. "Then why do you act so gentle?" He thought for a moment before answering. "Because that is what you need tonight." Her breath caught in her chest. She was ready to laugh, to call his words foolish, but she could not. Something in his voice carried weight, like soil carrying seeds. It was plain but strong. When night fell, Elias prepared a small bed of blankets near the fire. "You can sleep here," he said. "It will be warmer." "And you?" she asked without thinking. "I'll sleep outside," he said with a shrug. "It's fine." Her eyes narrowed. "Are you mocking me? Do you expect me to beg for comfort?" His lips curved slightly, not quite a smile. "No, princess. I expect nothing." That word, princess, on his lips sounded different. Not like her people said it with fear or mockery. But with respect, she turned away quickly, hiding the strange heat on her face when she finally lay down. The fire warming her skin, she closed her eyes. She thought she would not sleep, but exhaustion dragged her under. In the darkness, her dreams twisted. She saw the court laughing, her people whispering, the chains of tradition pulling her down. And then in the dream, a hand reached out, warm and steady, pulling her from the shadows, a human hand. She woke with a start. Her golden eyes opened to the dim light of the fire. Elias was there, sitting on the floor with his back against the wall. He was awake, his gaze fixed on the flames, his face calm, peaceful. He had not touched her, not once, and yet her chest felt strange for the first time since the sentence. She felt something other than anger or pride. She felt confusion, she whispered to herself, so soft that he could not hear. This is only the first night, but in her heart, she already feared the truth. This punishment was not what it seemed. The morning sun rose weakly over the human colony, its pale light spreading across the fields of dry soil. Elias was already outside, his hands deep in the earth, tending to crops that struggled against the wind. Elira stood at the window, her golden eyes narrowed. She had never seen a ruler of land work with his own hands. To her it looked foolish. She stepped outside, her pride keeping her chin high. "Is this what humans call survival?" she mocked. "Digging in the dirt like insects?" Elias wiped the sweat from his brow. He looked at her calmly. "This is life," he said. "Work keeps us alive." His simple answer irritated her. She wanted him to rise to anger, to lash out, to prove her right, that humans were weak and base, but he only returned to his task, the steady rhythm of his work like the heartbeat of the earth itself. Later that day, the village square filled with people. Humans moved about carrying tools, food, and water. Elira walked among them, her long gown trailing like a river of fire. Her beauty caught every eye, and whispers followed her. That's her, the alien princess. They say she was punished. She felt their stares like knives. Her pride roared inside her chest. She wanted them to bow, to kneel, but they only looked. Curious but unafraid to regain her honor, she lifted her chin higher. Her voice cut through the crowd. Look well, humans. I am Princess Elira of the Dominion. You should kneel before me. The square fell silent, then laughter erupted, not cruel, but soft and amused. Humans shook their heads. A child tugged at her mother's hand and whispered. She talks funny. Elira's cheeks burned hot. No one feared her, no one obeyed in that moment. She felt smaller than ever before. She turned to Elias, hoping he would finally show weakness, hoping he would be embarrassed, but instead he stepped beside her, his hand steady on her shoulder, not forceful, just grounding. His calm voice carried across the square. She is a guest here. Treat her with respect. The laughter faded. The people returned to their work. For them, his word was enough. Elira's chest tightened. She should have felt rage at his touch. She should have thrown his hand away, yet she could not. The weight of his palm was not ownership, not insult. It was protection. That night, as they returned home, she snapped at him, her voice sharp. Why did you speak for me? Do you think I cannot defend myself? Elias met her glare with calm eyes. I spoke because you were alone, he said simply. Even the proud need someone beside them. His words cut deep. Her pride screamed against them, but her heart trembled for years. She had walked surrounded by guards and servants, yet never had anyone stood beside her without asking for power in return. Days passed, and she tested him again and again. She left tasks undone, hoping he would order her. She insulted him, hoping he would break. She tried to show her strength, hoping he would fear her. But Elias never wavered. He only answered with quiet strength. One evening, as the red sun dipped low, a sudden cry echoed from the edge of the village. A child had fallen into the irrigation channel. The water rushing fast, Elira froze, unsure. Her people had servants for such things. She had never touched danger with her own hands. But Elias ran without hesitation. He leapt into the water, his arms strong as he pulled the child to safety. The villagers cheered, relief washing over them. Elira stood still, her heart pounding. She had always thought of humans as fragile, yet here was one, risking his life without a second thought. His courage burned brighter than the pride she wore like armor. When he returned, dripping wet, the child safe in his arms, he only smiled softly. It's all right now. For the first time, Elira could not find words. Her tongue felt heavy, her pride cracked. She had imagined herself as the strong one, the untouchable one. But before her stood a human whose strength was not in muscle or power but in heart. That night, as the fire burned low, she turned her face away. Hiding the turmoil in her chest, she whispered to herself, Why does his touch not feel like chains? Her pride was shattering piece by piece. And in the silence of the human house, Princess Elira, daughter of the Dominion, felt fear not of punishment, but of change. The days grew longer on the human colony. The sun was harsh, the winds dry, yet life continued in its steady rhythm. Elias worked with quiet strength, and Elira watched him with eyes that refused to admit what her heart had already begun to feel. One evening, while returning from the fields, she stumbled on a stone hidden beneath the dust. A sharp cry escaped her lips as her ankle twisted. Pain shot up her leg, she fell to the ground, her pride breaking faster than her body. Before she could rise, Elias was at her side, his hands gentle yet firm. Don't move, he said. His voice steady, not panicked, he knelt and touched her ankle, his fingers warm against her cool skin. She gasped, not from the pain, but from the touch. No one had ever dared to touch her so simply, not even her guards. Her people bowed, they obeyed, they feared her. But this human, he touched her without trembling. Without greed, his touch was not a chain, not a claim, it was care. Let go, she hissed, her pride fighting. I don't need you. But Elias ignored her words. He wrapped her ankle with a strip of cloth, his movements careful, precise. His rough hands were steady as if they had done this many times before. When he finished, he looked into her golden eyes. Better? He asked, her lips trembled. She wanted to shout, to deny, but the truth slipped out, soft and unwilling. Yes, that night. She could not sleep. The memory of his touch haunted her. It was nothing like she had known. No arrogance, no demand, no fear, only gentleness. And that gentleness shook her more than any weapon ever had. The next morning, Elias prepared food. The smell of roasted grain filled the small house. He placed a bowl in front of her. "Eat," he said simply. She lifted her chin. "Do you think I am weak? That I cannot feed myself?" His calm eyes met hers. "I think you're hurt." That's all. The words disarmed her. She picked up the bowl and tasted the food. It was plain, but it warmed her. For the first time in days, she felt comfort. Later, while he worked in the field, she followed, her ankle still sore. But her pride unwilling to stay behind, she watched as he lifted heavy tools. His muscles straining, sweat running down his neck. He looked fragile compared to her people. Yet every movement was filled with quiet power. "Why do you work so hard?" she asked suddenly. "You could die, and still these fields would need tending." Elias leaned on his shovel, wiping his brow. "Because life is not about pride," he answered. "It's about what you give to others, even if it cost you." His words struck her heart. Her people spoke only of honor, power, and fear. But here was a human speaking of giving, of sacrifice. It was a truth she had never been taught. That evening, as they sat by the fire, Elira noticed a small cut on his hand. She frowned without thinking. "You are bleeding." He shrugged. "It's nothing, but something inside her stirred." Before her mind could stop her, she reached out. Her long fingers brushed against his skin. Her touch was soft, healing instinct flowing from her kind. His breath caught. His eyes met hers in the flickering firelight. For a long moment, neither spoke. The fire crackled, the night hummed. Her hand lingered. She could feel his pulse. Strong and steady, realizing what she was doing. She pulled back sharply, her pride returning like a shield. "Don't mistake this for weakness," she said coldly. "I touched you only because I chose to." But when she turned away, her face burned with a heat she had never known. Her chest felt heavy, her heart unsteady. She whispered to herself when he could not hear, "Why does it feel different with him?" In the days that followed, small moments repeated. His hand brushing hers as they worked. His steady grip when she faltered. Her own fingers lingering too long when giving him tools. Each touch felt like a spark, small but dangerous. The princess who once believed touch was only for control now feared the truth. Gentleness was stronger than power. One night, unable to sleep, she looked at Elias resting by the fire, his face calm in the glow, his chest rising and falling with steady breaths. She whispered into the darkness, "Your touch is breaking me." But deep inside, she wondered if she wanted to be broken. The colony was quiet under the pale moon, but whispers traveled faster than wind. News of the alien princess living among humans spread beyond the small fields. Some spoke with awe, others with disgust. Elira could feel it whenever she stepped outside. Eyes followed her, voices hushed. At first, she thought it was only human gossip, simple and harmless. But soon she realized it was more. One morning, she walked through the village square with Elias beside her. A group of human women paused their work. Their eyes sharp, one muttered loudly, "Why should he protect her? She is not one of us." Another spat on the ground. "A punishment for her, but a burden for us," Elira's pride flared. She wanted to lash out to remind them she was a princess. But Elias placed a hand on her arm, a silent warning. She stayed quiet, though her jaw tightened. Later that night, while Elias slept near the fire, Elira stepped outside. The air was cold. Her golden eyes glowed faintly in the dark. She walked past the wooden fences, past the whispering trees, and then she heard them, voices low and plotting. "She will bring danger to us," one man said. "Her kind never change. She must be removed," another agreed. "Before her presence calls the Dominion back to finish what they started," Elira froze. Her heart raced. These were not harmless words. These were seeds of rebellion her people had given her as punishment. But now even these humans whispered of casting her out, or worse. She turned back quietly, her mind heavy. When she re-entered the house, Elias stirred. His calm eyes opened. "You heard them, didn't you?" She stiffened. "So you knew." He nodded slowly. Some fear what they don't understand. Fear turns into anger. Her pride pushed her words sharp. "Then why keep me here? Why risk their hate? Do you not see they blame you too?" Elias sat up, his face steady in the firelight. "Because you are not my burden, you are my responsibility. And until you can stand without fear, I will stand with you." Her chest tightened. She wanted to reject his words, to spit them out as weakness, but deep inside, they burned like a flame she could not extinguish. The following days, the whispers grew louder. Some humans kept their distance, others glared openly. Illyra walked with her head high, but inside her pride wavered. She had faced enemies with blades, but whispers were sharper. One evening, while helping Elias carry water, she noticed a shadow moving fast between the houses. A knife glinted in the low light. Instinct roared within her. She shoved Elias aside just as the blade struck. The attacker stumbled, revealing a human face twisted with fear. "You don't belong here," the man shouted. "You will bring ruin on us all." Elias restrained him, his strength surprising for his frame. The man struggled, but the calm in Elias's eyes froze him more than chains. "Go home," Elias said firmly. "Do not return with hate." The attacker fled into the dark, leaving silence behind. Illyra's heart pounded. She looked at Elias, his chest rising with slow breaths. He had protected her again, not with weapons, but with his presence that night she could not sleep. She stared into the fire, her voice low. "Why do they hate me so much?" Elias looked at her gently. "Because you are different and because change frightens them." Her hands tightened. "I was punished by my people, and now even yours hate me. Where do I belong?" He didn't answer right away. Then he reached out, his hand resting softly over hers. The touch was steady, grounding. "You belong where someone chooses to stand beside you." Her pride wanted to pull away, but her heart would not let her. She kept her hand there, trembling but unmoving. The next day, the whispers had changed. Some still spoke of rebellion, but others now spoke of what they had seen. A princess protecting a human protecting her. It confused them, planted doubt in their anger. Yet in the shadows, rebellion still stirred. Illyra could feel it, and though Elias's gentle touch gave her strength, she knew darker storms were coming. For the first time in her life, the proud princess feared not the judgment of her own people, but the knives hidden in the whispers of strangers. And in her chest a truth grew louder. If she survived, it would not be because of her pride, but because of the human whose hand refused to let go. The festival lights glowed across the human colony. For one night, the dusty village turned bright. Lanterns hung from wooden poles, music echoed in the square, and people gathered to forget their troubles. Children laughed, merchants sold food, and the smell of roasted grain filled the air. Elias walked beside Illyra, his simple shirt clean but worn, her gown shimmering like starlight even among humans. She carried herself like royalty. Her golden eyes scanned the crowd. She could feel the stares, some curious, some hostile. Some whispered her name. "Look, the alien princess, they forced her to marry him. Why is she here?" Illyra's pride wanted her to shout back, but Elias's steady presence beside her calmed her. For once, she chose silence. The music grew louder, and villagers formed a circle for the dance. Elias smiled softly. "It's tradition," he explained. "Will you join?" Her chin lifted. "I do not dance for humans," she declared. Yet her eyes betrayed her, watching as feet stamped and hands clapped in rhythm. She had danced once in her palace before her punishment, but never like this, never free, never among common people. Suddenly a shout cut through the music. The crowd froze. A man stumbled forward, his cloak shifting, and in his hand flashed steel. A knife glinted under the lanterns. "Death to the alien!" he roared. The crowd screamed, chaos rippling through the square. Illyra froze for a heartbeat. Her pride told her to stand tall, but fear clawed at her chest before she could move. Elias was there. He grabbed her arm, pulling her back as the attacker lunged. The blade sliced the air where she had stood. The man turned, ready for another strike. But Elias did not falter. He stepped forward with nothing but his bare hands. The attacker slashed again. Elias caught the man's wrist, twisting hard. The knife clattered to the ground. Gasps rose from the villagers. The man roared in rage, throwing punches. Elias took one to the chest but did not fall. He held his ground, his jaw set. Illyra's breath caught. She had seen warriors fight with swords and spears, but never had she seen someone fight with only will. Elias was not trained, not noble, but his strength came from something deeper. "Run, princess." Someone shouted, but she did not run. For the first time, her feet refused to move away. Her eyes locked on Elias, his fists struck back, his body bending but not breaking. The crowd gathered, some shouting, some frozen. Finally, with one last push, Elias shoved the attacker to the ground. Holding him down, villagers rushed to help, seizing the man and dragging him away. His voice still screamed through the square. "She will destroy us all. She does not belong here." Silence followed, broken only by the crackle of the lantern flames. Elias turned, his chest rising and falling, his lip bleeding, his hands scraped. Yet his calm eyes met Elira's. "Steady and unbroken, are you hurt?" he asked her, his voice low, gentle, as if he had not just faced death. Her throat tightened, words refused to come. She shook her head, golden eyes wide. For the first time, she realized the truth. This human would stand between her and death without hesitation, without armor, without fear. When the villagers saw this, something shifted. The whispers were no longer only of hate. Some eyes held respect, some even admiration. Elira felt it, though her pride tried to deny it. Later, back in their small house, she watched him clean his wounds by the fire, his hands steady even as blood streaked across his skin. She moved closer, her voice trembling despite her efforts. "Why did you not run?" "You could have died." Elias looked at her quietly. "Because you are my wife," he said simply. "And I will protect you." The words struck her harder than any blade. She turned her face away, hiding the heat in her cheeks. Her pride whispered she should be angry, that his words were chains. But her heart whispered something else, that his protection was not prison, it was choice. She sat beside him, her fingers hesitating, then without speaking, she reached out, her hand brushed his skin rough, warm, steady. He looked at her, surprised, but said nothing. Only his eyes softened, the firelight flickered, shadows dancing across their faces. In that quiet moment, Elira understood something terrifying. Her punishment was no longer her greatest fear. The true danger was the human who was breaking her pride piece by piece, not with force but with gentleness. And though she tried to hide it, part of her no longer wanted to resist. The days after the festival attack were heavy with silence. The colony had returned to its daily rhythm, yet the memory of the knife, the shouting, and Elias standing between death and the princess still hung in the air. Some villagers avoided Elira more than before, but others now looked at her differently. Not with hate, but with quiet curiosity. Elira herself was restless. She could not forget the sight of Elias bleeding for her. His words echoed in her chest, "Because you are my wife and I will protect you." One evening, she sat by the fire while Elias repaired a broken tool. The soft scrape of wood filled the room. His hands moved with patience, his face calm. Elira stared at him, pride and confusion warring inside her. At last she asked, her voice low, "Why do you not demand from me? Why do you not use my weakness to control me?" Elias did not look up. "Because I don't want control," he said. "I want peace, and maybe I want you to find it too." Her chest tightened. She wanted to laugh, to call him foolish, yet no words came. For the first time, she realized the chains binding her were not the punishment or the whispers of the colony. They were inside her, chains of pride, chains of fear, chains built by her own people. That night she dreamed again. She stood in the great court of the Dominion. The elders laughed, her mother looked away, and her people hissed, but when she turned, Elias was there, standing beside her, his hand reaching out, and in her dream she took it. She woke with a start, her breath uneven. The fire had burned low. Elias was asleep on the floor, his face soft in the shadows. Without thinking, she rose and pulled a blanket over him. Her hand lingered near his cheek, trembling before she pulled it away. The next morning trouble came again. A messenger arrived from the Dominion, his robes dark, his face sharp. He looked at Elira with disdain. "Princess, your punishment is not yet complete. Rumors have reached the council. They believe you have grown weak among these humans. They are not satisfied." Elira's pride flared. "Weak," she snapped. "I have endured humiliation beyond measure, and yet I still stand." The messenger smirked. "Standing is not enough, princess. If you cannot prove your loyalty to your people, the council will strip you of your name forever." Her hands clenched. The thought of losing her name, her crown, her bloodline, it was a blow worse than exile. She turned to Elias, her golden eyes burning. "Do you hear? Even now they wish to break me. They will never stop." Elias met her gaze, his calm eyes steady. "Then break the chains yourself." She froze. "What do you mean?" He set down his tools, standing before her, his voice quiet but firm. "All your life, you've lived by their rules, their pride, their fear. They hold chains over you because you let them. You are stronger than that, Elira. You don't need their throne, their approval, or their punishment to know who you are. His words struck her deeper than any sentence. She wanted to deny them, but her heart quivered. For so long she had fought to prove herself to her people, to hold her title, to guard her pride, but what had it given her? Loneliness, chains, whispers of betrayal. For a long time she stood silent, her breath heavy. Finally she whispered, "And if I break these chains, what will remain of me?" Elias stepped closer, not touching her, but close enough that she felt his warmth. "Then you will remain, not as their princess, not as their punishment, but as yourself." Her eyes burned, tears she had never allowed herself to show rising. She turned quickly, hiding her face. Her voice broke. "You speak as if it is simple, but it is not. My pride is all I have." Elias's voice softened. "Then let me share the weight of it. You don't have to carry it alone for a moment." The fire crackled between them. She felt his words sinking into her bones, tearing at the walls she had built her whole life, and in that moment, her pride cracked wider than ever before that night. She walked outside under the starlit sky. The wind tugged at her gown, her golden eyes lifted upward. She whispered into the dark, "If I let this human break me, am I truly broken? Or finally free?" And deep inside she knew the answer. The chains had begun to fall, not by force, not by fear, but by the gentle touch of a man who asked for nothing. But in the shadows of the colony, unseen eyes watched. Whispers turned into plans. Enemies of both human and alien stirred, waiting for the moment to strike. The true test of her breaking chains had only begun.